what are some of the trends you're seeing in sort of in the agency landscape at the moment?
We're seeing a bit of a shift change with some of those businesses of a certain size.
There's always something in the news that's pretty dramatic around the world, isn't there?
You talk to anyone that's been in business a long time, they'll have been through various recessions, and you find that the people that do well always do well.
You built that trust and you've proved yourself over years and months and months and years.
It's crazy. You work so hard to get clients in the door. You don't really want to let them go.
Ultimately, do a freaking good job.
How we're not seeing that? It's like literally in front of you.
I assume you are using AI within the agency.
How to leverage it better for processes, but also reporting.
Hi everyone, Richard Hill here. Welcome back to Agency Intensive. Now today, I'm joined by Josh Grant from Absolute Design. Now Josh was on the podcast around 18 months ago, so this was a really good chance to catch up on what's changed, what he's seeing out there, and what's actually going on in agency land right now. We get into uncertainty in the market, the pressure agency owners feel when clients are feeling the pinch, and why times like these are exactly when agencies earn their stripes by doing a brilliant job, getting closer to clients and becoming a genuine, trusted advisor. We also talk about the opportunity to help clients simplify bloated tech stacks, cut wasted spend, and get more value from tools they're already paying for, as well as where AI can actually help agencies with reporting, operations, and efficiency without replacing the human thinking behind it. So, if you run an agency and want to build better client relationships, tighten up those operations, and stay ahead in a noisy market, there's loads in this one. Let's get into it. Now, before we dive in, I just want to quickly thank our sponsor, Aristo Sourcing, for sponsoring this episode. We've been using Aristo Sourcing for my team building needs, from customer service, executive assistants, admin support, to digital marketing specialists, and they're a great partner for agencies looking to scale without the recruitment hassle of the more traditional methods. We decided to partner with them after seeing firsthand how their team have helped me and my teams grow efficiently over the past 18 months with reliable, skilled professionals who actually deliver. If you're ready to build your dream team, head to aristosourcing.com and find out more. We put the link in the description so you can go straight ahead and check it out. That being said, let's dive straight into this episode. Well, Josh, here we are again.
Yeah.
I think 18, 20 months since you were last here on the Agency Intensive podcast. Welcome back.
Thank you. Time's flown, and I can't really believe it's been that long.
It's pretty crazy, isn't it? Episode 5, I believe, and here we are now, doing it again. Obviously, 18, 20 months in agency land. All sorts of things have happened, I think. And so let's unpack maybe the last 18 months a little bit, see what you've been up to, and obviously some of the things and plans you have right now and what you're working on.
Sounds good.
So thanks for coming back in. As you probably recall, we like to talk about the things that keep us up as agency owners. You know, what's maybe one thing at the moment that is on your mind and that you're working on?
I think the big one that's keeping me up at the minute, and it's probably never goes away as an agency sort of owner or, you know, senior management or whatever it might be, is the uncertainty in the world markets. All of that, you feel like, is that going to affect us? Is that going to hit us? Is the pipeline going to stay solid? And I think that's the one that at night time when I'm like, you know, going to sleep, I'm like, you feel responsible for everyone's livelihood, don't you? You know, you want to make sure everyone's having a good living and all the rest of it. And you're like, are we really going to get enough deals through the door? That's the one. It pays the bills. It's the big one, isn't it?
So, like, turn the news off?
Yeah.
Or is that a bit of a ridiculous answer to... Because I think no matter what's going on in the world, there's always something going on in the world. But obviously right now, there is a lot more than ever going on in the world. So the fuel situation, for example, can and does and is impacting a lot of retailers. Yeah. So that might mean there's a downturn in where they spend their money, potentially, because there's an uncertainty with retail at certain retailers where certain costs of goods may go up, for example, or have gone up. Or is there a more specific thing that's on your mind? I
think it's part of that because, you know, you can turn the news off. My wife hates the fact that I watch the news. She's like, just live in your bubble, it'll be fine. And I'm very much like, well, you can't avoid it because all of our clients are talking about it. Various different parts of the supply chain.
Yeah.
And you want to be able to kind of support them if they're, it's really tricky, all our shipping costs have gone up already, they're feeling the pinch, and we, have to sometimes pass the cost on with increasing rates and all that kind of thing. So I think it's important to kind of listen to it enough that you are making sort of concerted efforts to just be even better than you are. Like if the world's in turmoil, there's always something. Like you talk to anyone that's been in business a long time, they'll have been through various recessions and whatever it is, and you find that the people that do well always do well, and the ones that are kind of just floating around the middle, and they might lose one or two key accounts because they're not kind of diversified enough, whatever it might be, they're the ones that you kind of see wobble. And we do see agencies. I know people in agencies where they've not been able to weather the storm.
Yeah.
And that's in the last 5 years. Yeah. Even the last year, potentially. So I think making sure that you don't ever forget that is kind of crucial.
Yeah.
And we've done more kind of like, right, now's the time to, while everything's a little bit in turmoil, let's just, full send really. Like you've got to give it everything to make sure you're above the rest, I guess.
But I think that's brilliant advice to the people that are listening. Ultimately, do a freaking good job.
Yeah.
Like, not just everyone, do a good job, but like, unbelievable job.
Yeah.
So when things maybe do get a bit tricky for some of your clients or some of the people within your, whether depending on, your sort of chain of where you sit, that you are unlikely to be the one that's going to get squeezed as much. Do a really, really good job. But then it's like listening to the news thing. I'm like this. I'm like more of a no, I don't. But then I'm not completely deluded that I need to be aware, as you say, of what is going on. So obviously when it kicked off in the Middle East, I was actually about to travel the day after. So obviously I was very much watching it for self-interest to start with. But then now it is starting to impact certain clients. But at the same respect, there's always something in the news that's pretty dramatic around the world, isn't there? So
there is.
It can sort of, you can slant your positiveness around the business, and you go into, have you seen what's happened now with this? And so I am definitely more of a positive outlook kind of person. Yeah. Glass is always half full sort of thing, and it's going to get fuller. But in reality, there are things always happening that you've got to be aware of. But I think you can sometimes get dragged into those and then use that as you may be blaming the fact that the business maybe isn't doing so well. Well, it won't be because of this and the fuel. And, well, hang on a minute. If you're doing a bloody good job and your clients couldn't live without you, I mean, this is some extreme language I'm using here, but, you're doing a really, really good job. Your clients, you built that trust and you've proved yourself over years and months and months and years. They're going to probably want to work with you even more when times are tough. And you're the trusted advisor that is there to help them through these times, rather than the sort of thing that gets thrown to the side sort of thing, and you just, like you say, hanging in there as a service provider, not really adding the value. So I think it's times like this and now you can sort of really earn your stripes.
I totally agree, and we've got one client that works in the oil industry, and they came in for a strategy meeting the other day, and it's something we do with all of our clients on a regular basis to kind of go through what their pain points are, what their growth plans are, what they're trying to do. And one of their things was, they can only buy a certain amount of oil from their supplier per year. They get a quota, and they've changed how you can basically call that quota off. They've gone, you've got to spread it out. You can't choose when you want it, kind of thing, to kind of make sure there isn't like an hysteria with like supply and demand. But what that has meant is in that strategy meeting, they're very much talking about, right, let's talk about the other areas of the business that could grow, and we have got plenty of kind of supply for, to kind of help them out with the areas of the business that are going to get squeezed a bit, because they're in a position where potentially they'll only be able to look after their existing clients, and any new wholesale clients or anyone that comes on like that, they won't be able to. They'll just have to say no, because otherwise they're going to jeopardise their relationship with their existing client base.
With long-term clients,
And they're sort of and I totally agree with you that you need to not. If you sat and watched the news all the time, you would just be a very depressed person. but it's very much like going pick and choose the little bits of it. And my brother lives in Dubai, for example, so it's like you can't avoid it because it's very front and center. But being, like you say, the best you can be, and supporting those clients with those questions and concerns, going, let's have a look at this, let's diversify, where your revenue's coming from a little bit. is kind of really crucial. I think
It's a bit like COVID, isn't it? Obviously different, but and ultimately clients going through not knowing from day to day how good business will be. Obviously initially thinking, oh my God, nightmare. But then obviously quite a lot of econ brands had a good, not all, but obviously quite a broad amount of sectors did quite well. And obviously communicating with them a lot more regularly, working with them a lot more regular. That's, and tighter around that time. That I know a lot of agencies did quite well, during COVID because they, obviously e-commerce went crazy. 3 years growth in a year sort of thing for a lot of brands. So it's sort of similar now where you can really build that trust and those relationships with existing clients when things are a bit tough for them. I think. Yeah,
I totally agree. We've got another client that buys, as a lot of our mutual clients probably do as well, buy a lot of stuff from China.
Yeah.
And they bought their stock in a long time ago, and it's seasonal, so they bought all their stock in for summer at the old pricing, and probably are going to sort of leverage themselves in the market pretty well because some of their competitors tend to wait a little bit later to sort of bring stuff in.
Yeah.
So they're now in a position where they're going to probably do very well this year.
They'll have a good price and they'll still have more margin than normal.
Yeah. So there are going to be some winners. Yeah, for sure.
I've seen a few petrol stations that have clearly got old fuel, like in some of the villages and things. You're like, no way, is that £1.58 a gallon or whatever a litre? Crazy. It's like give it a week, that'll be gone, and they'll be up to the Okay, so now my understanding is you're still going to quite a few events.
Yep.
Yeah, and I think we've got a lot of friends of the podcast and the agency that go to a lot of the different events around Econ, in the e-commerce landscape. Is it's very busy with events now. I think more and more brands and agencies doing events and doing collaborations and partnerships. But I'm interested to sort of know from you going out to the go and seeing a lot of the different people in the industry. What are some of the trends you're seeing in sort of in the agency landscape at the moment?
There's quite a few. So it depends on how kind of specific we want to get, I guess. I think one of the big shifts we're seeing, and like you say, you talk to different tech partners, different sort of agency owners, whether it be dev or digital marketing or full service, whatever it might be. They all have a slightly different kind of view, I guess, on kind of where things are. But we're seeing, especially on the kind of the platform side, a little bit of a transition. So as we know, there are SaaS platforms out there that dominate very well. We're both partners with some of those. And we're kind of seeing a bit of a shift where people have probably been kind of sold that dream of SaaS being great and everyone can kind of live on there and it's going to be amazing. I have to be a bit careful what I say because obviously, you want to keep friends with everyone. But we're seeing a bit of a shift change with some of those businesses of a certain size realising that their total cost of ownership on some of those SaaS platforms is very expensive. And it's very much then going, is that extra cost really bringing us that extra return? Or are we better looking at kind of open source or consolidating, looking at a different tech stack? Because those SaaS platforms get expensive. And when you're doing certain revenue figures, they want more of the pie, rightly so. They're a bit restrictive on, payment providers or, they try and get them to use their own. And it's not for everyone. And I think we've seen, especially for people that kind of aren't aware of it, in the Magento landscape, Hoover came along to kind of bridge the whole, I guess, that was left when Adobe acquired Magento and has given Magento a roadmap. So it's improved the front end because the themes, the legacy themes that were built for Magento, so like Luma is like 7-8 years, probably even older, hasn't been updated. Very tricky to work with, slow, not very performant. And like the admin in Magento was getting a bit clunky. And this applies to Adobe Commerce, the paid version to a certain extent as well. And also the checkout, things like that the SaaS platforms have got really slick and super good. They've bridged that gap and people have realised that actually now some of those open source platforms that either a little bit more risky, like WordPress probably a little bit risky if it's not managed properly, that kind of thing. Magento had a bit of a bad rep for being hard to work with and a bit clunky and all the rest of it. We're kind of seeing a bit of a resurgence of that. Yeah. And some brands are going, you know what, let's have a look at that. A lot
of that comes down to total cost of ownership.
It does, and we're fairly platform agnostic. It's very much like what does the client want, and if they want a particular SaaS platform, that's fine. We'll give them the facts and go, well, these are the things you need to be aware of, what's going on. You need to make your own decision, but it's very much for them to do that. And the total cost of ownership thing, I think, has been talked about for the last few years, but I think is becoming more and more of a thing as the costs start to sort of creep in. We've got a brand at the minute that we're building a Shopify site for. Turns over sort of 7 million online, not huge, but decent business. And they're on a bespoke platform at the minute. So their actual total cost of ownership is pretty low, and they can use whatever payment providers they want, all the rest of it. So they were actually looking at not using that SaaS platform's checkout to be able to then kind of dictate what they want to do. And you're thinking, well, that's fine, but wouldn't it be better on an open source platform that you can dictate your own destiny a little bit more? So I think it's very, very easy for agencies to say, well, it's going to be SaaS, that's going to be it. I don't think that's the case. I think there is still, and we tend to, by nature of what we do, attract complicated businesses that have got complicated things going on.
That's why they hire, though, so you can break that down, look at the options.
Yeah, exactly. And I think where you find that a lot of the agencies in the sort of the SaaS space, so the big commerce, the Shopify's, the whatever it might be, a lot of those agencies started off as probably design agencies or whatever it might be, haven't got a huge amount of breadth and depth of kind of knowledge with actual development, other than kind of front end. So it very much like they'll go, right, we can do all this, but they'll plug all these things in, they'll use third parties for all the whatever it needs. That's expensive, and we'll sometimes bridge that gap and go, well, if you absolutely adamant you want to be on a SaaS platform, we could probably save you some money by building some of those bits for you guys, rather than paying for a plugin that costs you every month. It's volume based, all that stuff. Like, people don't sit down and go, right, what is it actually costing me to be on this platform?
And then they have a lot of overlap as well, don't they? Quite often. You think, well, you're using that and that, but actually you've never logged into that one, and that does what that one does, so we can cancel those two. Or,
crazy. The money that some businesses are wasting on like tech overlap, the prime examples are things like email service providers. If they're using a decent SaaS platform like Shopify, it has a lot of really good email features in there that a lot of brands will probably never exceed. And if they do, that's fine. They can still go to those other platforms. But you're better off using what you kind of got as a core.
At least use that rather than pay for something else and don't use anything.
Exactly. Tick that box and go, I've
and then when you,
that.
Well, we see that, they're paying for, email X, and then they're not doing any email.
I know.
And if they just use the one that's in with the platform, and they get to a point, they may well want to then go and use the paid one, but they're actually paying for one they're not using, and I'm not using the free one either.
Yeah, and I think it's a tricky one because you don't want to call it sling mud, but I think there are sort of sales processes with some of those tech partners that have put a lot of brands onto those platforms without a huge amount of support.
Yeah.
And they're now sat there with a platform they're not really leveraging. And those platforms are great, don't get me wrong. Like, if you leverage some of those platforms, they're amazing. But if you haven't got the support, or you've got someone in-house to kind of leverage it, you're wasting your money. And I think a lot of them now are like falling off. So the retention with some of those platforms is like they've really lost a lot of clients. And a big opportunity, because I think it's growing pains. I think some of those platforms scaled massively, really quickly, really struggled to build the teams and scale the teams out. And then they've kind of realised that and pivoted and gone, hang on a minute, we need to actually make the agencies do all of that. Yeah. And but it's almost too late because they've kind of missed that opportunity.
But that's where we're on the agency intensive podcast as opposed to the Econ 1 podcast. But as an agency listening, if you're working with brands and they are paying for X, Y, Z, SaaS tools and software, there's an opportunity for you as the agency owner or the agency team to do that audit with the client, and build that relationship, because ultimately there's probably going to be a saving there, or a win where, I didn't realise we weren't using that, so you help them set that thing up, or you work with a partner to set that thing up, and they're making more money or saving money, and straight away, they're not just paying a monthly bill that they probably forgot about for however many months. We all do it, I guess, in our personal lives. Maybe hang on, we've got Netflix, we've got Amazon, we've got whatever it is, and I only use Netflix. So what's going on?
I know you see them on like socials. Those companies that actually do audit.
Yeah, they log. Yeah, you just let it. Oh, hang on a minute. How many direct debits have you got? Oh, about 3. It says 14.
Or your wife's got duplicates of what you got, and you're like, what is going on? Well, you're absolutely right. It's like, I think agencies are a massive opportunity there, like huge, because I know there are some really good agencies that have come out that specialise in leverage a lot of these platforms, and they become really big partners for those platforms. But most of the brands that we still talk to have got not Scoobies how to kind of run any of the tech that they've got, and it's a massive one. And that's why we've got obviously a great relationship with the likes of you guys, because we try not to do everything. We try to do what we do really well, and then make sure we kind of identify those sort of strategy gaps, and those tools they're not using, and sort of support them. 'Cause that's where the retention is big time. Like if you go and help a client like that and go, just bring it all here, we'll cut through the noise and save you a load of money basically. It's like,
Here. I mean, we call it sort of strategy days. You know, clients coming in for strategies. They're more like a half a day, but it's it's a strategy day. Come in for a strategy day, and it is very much let's have a look at the whole thing. Obviously, we are like you. We do this bit or these bits, but we know people like yourself that do the other bits. But ultimately, I remember I wasn't in the strategy day, but I saw the document that followed the strategy day, and the client, exactly what you just said, the client is paying X amount for email and they don't even log into it.
It's crazy.
So even if they just cancelled that, I think that's £1,500, £1,700 a month they're paying for email, and they don't even recall logging in. It's like, no way. £1,700 a month, that pays for a lot of new stuff or pays a lot of bills or some bills, and then get email working on it within the within the platform itself or the SaaS itself, the Econ platform. And then it gets to a point where you might start looking if you need, depends, but straight away you've just got the saving on the SaaS, on the third party tool or whatever it may be. But then you're actually leaning into the thing and think, well, actually, now we're making we're converting an extra 7% of carts or whatever it may be because we're following up with people. Just a little thing like that could be the difference between profit and no profit sort of thing, an extra, whatever it is. So I think any agencies with us, which should be most of you right now, opportunity to really be that, I think, the word I like to use is that trusted advisor, genuine trusted advisor, where you're helping them with the wider audit. There might be some things there as an agency you don't specialise in, but that's where you build relationships and partnerships and so forth, and and work with a group of other agencies maybe to fill the gaps that you don't, and build your own network of trusted advisors that you can then, as an agency, help that brand, that retailer, with your 3 or 4 or 5 or however many trusted advisors, sort of thing. That's a lot of trusted advisors in one sentence.
It is, but I think we still get a lot of clients, as probably you do, that they come to us and they don't feel like they've had that trusted advisor.
Yeah.
And if there's kind of one thing that you say to any agencies that are listening to this, it's like, people are still doing it wrong because they still come to other agencies. And there was, we all know how it works in agency land. People do moves sometimes because they want to change the scene or outgrow kind of what you're doing or whatever it might be. But I think there are so many opportunities still there where people have maybe been they've worked with an agency for a few years. That agency's scaled maybe. They've struggled to kind of manage the sort of service levels. A few people have left that were key kind of contacts.
Yep.
They've lost those strategy days or sessions or whatever it might be. And all of a sudden they kind of feel like they're in no man's land. And it's identifying that. And I think with all those tools that we've got at our fingertips now, identifying kind of those risk factors on those accounts early and going, hang on a minute, we've just how have we not seen that? It's like literally in front of you. It's crazy. You work so hard to get clients in the door. You don't really want to let them go if you can help it. And it's easy and done. There's always going to be those sort of things that fall through the gaps, and you can't help sometimes the change of guard, at the client side, and they sometimes want to bring the people in that they work with or whatever it might be. But I think you can fight pretty hard for that and make it a very difficult one to move. Yeah. If someone comes into we've had it with clients where they've had a change of guard, they've come in and realised that actually it's pretty good service that we're offering. Yeah, it doesn't really give them much to go. I've just come into this new job, and I want to just move everything.
Don't want to risk it. I'm the guy who's
exactly because it's like, well, hang on a minute, these guys have been solid for 10 years.
Yeah, they're risking their career. Yeah, and in fact, I'm going to shift it to the guy that I used at the. Hang on, these guys are really good. Hang on, are they better than the guys I know? Oh, this is our language. A lot of M&A going on and with a lot of our clients where they've been acquired and you're like, oh, is this going to be really good? Is this going to be you're out sort of thing?
The alarm bells go off. We had one recently actually. I'm sure you guys monitor these, and I think a lot of agencies hopefully that are listening do. They'll be like, you get a question from the client going, can you tell us what contract we've got in place with you? You're thinking,
yeah, that's not the best first question with a new contact, is it? Oh, what quite where? Oh, okay. Yeah, and I think it is. It can obviously be a bit like that in the early months of a new contact going in as the main contact with a brand, but it is a bit like that, isn't it? It can be, but then that's where, if you've done some of the things we've talked about, well, we know that we engage them to do this, but actually they know so much more than that. They've got a real good network of this, that, and the other, and they've become very trusted, and ultimately we've helped. They're saying that we've helped the brand grow X, Y, Z. I got an example where we worked with this client for maybe a long time, about 15 years, I think, and then they bought another business which was quite a lot bigger than the business we were working on, but in that vertical, and with it came their marketing manager, who was then put in charge of it all. But he was put in charge of, the whole lot, which is way bigger than the bit we had. So we're like, oh, this could be tricky. But then basically he said to us, I've never heard of you, which is, fine. Obviously there's a few people not heard of Econ One, UK brand. I was like, okay, really? But no, he'd not heard of us. But then, we started working with them, and he was in the meetings. He was like, God, you guys are really good. It's like he wasn't used to the level of service, I think, is the honest what he had got used to with the other brand, even though the other brand was a lot bigger. So then we've been winning, quite a lot of the other things that we, from this new brand that they've acquired, which has been quite nice. But to start with, it's like, the marketing manager for the bigger brand, they're going to probably take all of it over time to their other agency, but it's actually gone the other way, and we've just sort of doing a blooming good job, setting those sort of standards and so forth within the team and so forth. But right, well, let's move on. So we can't do an episode of the podcast without saying the magic word, which is AI.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of people, we don't need an agency anymore. AI can do that and all that nonsense. What's your opinion with sort of agencies, dying, and that sort of people say, agencies, I can do that myself now, and AI can do that now, and what's your sort of take on that?
I wholeheartedly disagree, and I think it's very easy to go, these things are so good at what they do, used in the right scenarios, that you can kind of see that vision of no one's going to have a job and everything's going to be automated. It's just not going to happen. There are some platforms that are coming out in the PPC space where very much it will try and run your sort of PPC campaigns and all this sort of stuff. But we find, especially on the development side, so I think that's, we're primarily a development agency. Yep. I think that's a good kind of way to explain it, that you can use a lot of tools to kind of sense check things, maybe, help you, whatever it might be, might help you with admin. But when it comes to code, even though some of the sort of the models out there are very good at potentially writing code, they've got no experience. They know what they know, but they've not got that it's the architectural piece, isn't it? It's like, who's going to go, right, well, actually, it doesn't know about this thing and it doesn't know about that thing and that thing. Yeah, but you can just tell it. It's not the same. Someone who's been doing a job for 20 years, maybe as a web developer, coding, etc., their code's going to be better, but they're also going to be thinking about the wider implications of, is that going to cause security vulnerabilities? Is that going to cause a technical debt that's going to cause performance later down the line? A lot of these things are good at kind of writing a bit of code, in isolation in front of you, but they're not necessarily great at thinking about the bigger picture. And I think I've not seen a case yet where someone has proved to me that is there yet. And you can feed all this information in, and you can do handover documents, you can pass it along, and you can keep all this user agents out, all this good stuff. But I think it hasn't joined all the dots together yet. And I think that's the crucial thing. And it's a bit of the same, like we don't outsource development outside of the UK. We took that decision very much to be able to manage everything how we want to manage it. We want to be able to kind of sit in a room with the developers we want to, whatever it might be. And it's become a lot easier to kind of manage overseas teams and things like that with the way sort of technology's evolved. But I think just having that, it's that language barrier and being able to kind of, work with someone for a long time you can't easily replace that, I don't think. And that's the same with AI. Like, you're talking to AI as if it's like your colleague or your friend or whatever, but it's not. It doesn't.
It's not.
It doesn't have that wider context, and it's not artificial intelligence. It doesn't. It can't think for itself. You are telling it to think. so I think that's a long way away. And I think the problem you're going to have is people that put too much trust in it are potentially going to open themselves up for it to, cause them problems, or miss massive things that it's not aware of.
Now, I'm just going to pause this one for a second with a quick note from our sponsor, Aristo Sourcing. Now, when it comes to building high-performing teams overseas for my agency, Aristo Sourcing is my go-to partner. Whether you're looking to scale your operations, reduce costs, or access world-class talent without the hassle, they've made it incredibly straightforward for us. I've personally been working with them now for over 18 months and can thoroughly recommend their services firsthand. If you're ready to build your team and take your agency to the next level, head over to aristosourcing.com to find out more. Now, let's get right back into this episode. Well, you see it, don't you, now, unfortunately, when you go on to say, this is probably a poor example, but, go onto LinkedIn and it's just a waft of drivel. I can't bring myself. I used to do a lot of LinkedIn.
Yeah.
Now I can't. I just can't bring myself to join the dribble brigade.
Honestly.
I wake up in the morning and feel like I just need to go and stick my head in the cold shower.
Yeah. It's a race to the bottom, because the problem you've got is, as all of that, especially on the content side.
Well, I don't do it, is what I'm driving at.
But that's the thing. It's like, as more and more that, whether it be, I don't know, content written for organic SEO, very much similar for people targeting AI crawlers and stuff like that. But if people are kind of regurgitating this AI cycle, eventually the quality of all of that, as we all know, is going to deplete. Someone at some point has to add something new into the system that it hasn't thought about. And I think from a coding point of view, that still happens. Because, someone might not have thought of that scenario that you're going to code. Yeah. So it doesn't know about it. So
your job's okay for now?
I think so.
But I assume you are using AI within the agency. Is there maybe anything you could share, around how you are implementing certain things without giving away the farm sort of thing?
Yeah, I think there's a really topical one at the moment. I'm in a few WhatsApp groups with different agency owners and things like that. And one of the ones that we've kind of all collectively started to kind of pull our knowledge on is how to leverage it better for processes, but also reporting. And I think a lot of agencies, and I know Econ one's probably one of them, you've got a lot of different systems and you're trying to kind of join the dots and make it so you've got a uniformed kind of dashboard and the rest of it. I think AI has definitely leveraged that and accelerated kind of doing that.
Yeah.
And being able to kind of identify those things that we said with like the retention piece, it might be that it will just all of a sudden flag an account going, there's a couple of metrics on here that it's spotted that aren't kind of optimal to where you want them to be. And unless someone's happened to have checked that, or it's on a report somewhere, they're the sort of things you miss. And I think having an AI-generated dashboard that's kind of cut through all the data to give you kind of a bit of an insight, you can't use it as your only tool. It's kind of that nice. It's like that icing on the cake, isn't it? It's like you've still got the cake, but you've got this nice icing bit to the side that's kind of giving you that extra, bit. And I think that's where it's helpful. And and on the admin side, I think we've all been using it on admin stuff for a long time. And I think you're kind of mad if you don't. And it might even be like, as much as we kind of get internally, there's kind of there are different opinions in the business, I guess, about kind of how AI should be leveraged and used. And I think some of the development team especially are very much like, it needs to be contained. It needs to, you need to have a policy on where it's going to be used. But things like, note taking and stuff like that is getting better and better all the time.
Yeah.
I think a lot of them have struggled in the early days and they did make those mistakes. And you've seen people that have not read it and sent it to a client and all this sort of stuff. And you're like,
that's not what we said.
Yeah, exactly.
That's not what we agreed to.
Exactly that. So I think there's very much like, it accelerates that review piece. So you get to review it quickly, go, I agree with that.
A lot of the admin side of things, speed up,
I think that's really good. And I think there's probably more to be done with kind of process and operations, even from like a project management point of view. I think I haven't got to the bottom of how well that can be implemented in the business yet, because there are likely things in there that going to save time, or it's going to potentially even just identify inefficiencies, or identify something to have a look at. It might be like, well, we think there's kind of a gap there, and you go and look at it and go, yeah, there is a gap there, and you solve it. So I think using it as kind of a signpost, I think, is quite a good way.
Highlight, yeah.
So
a topic we're a massive fan of on the Agency Intensive is sales. Growing, I think, obviously growing agencies is really the core of Agency Intensive. I think maybe 18, 20 months ago when we last had you on, I think we talked a lot about events and going to events and partnerships. What's sort of working for you at the moment in terms of sort of winning new business?
So we've definitely pivoted a little bit since I came on the last time, in the sense of, I think a lot of people have over the last few years. There was kind of that surge after COVID of like, let's go to every event, let's see what's going on. And I think it's taken me probably a good 3-4 years to kind of build the relationships from going to those events that are now kind of reaping rewards. And I think, we would, as a business, I think, fairly safe in saying this, been in a bit of a tricky situation if we hadn't have done that, because a big percentage of our new business, especially the big stuff, comes in from networking and
somebody you met several years ago, kept that, and then 3 years later, whatever, 4 years later, that when the time's right.
I think it's always been like that in business, but I think because of how kind of big the Econ, big or small, like we all know each other, but you know what I mean. There's a lot of us, but we all know each other. I think it's kind of more crucial, because I think if you're in an industry that is a bit more old school, there's only a few big players. They all need to still know the key people in that, but they probably don't need to move quite as quick. And I think that's the thing. It's like you could meet someone tomorrow at an event that's the next big thing. And that could be the next big gold scene.
But you don't really know for a year or two, and you've got to wait a couple of years to get the, to get that commercial. But
we won quite a big account. I think it was the tail end of last year that I'd met him at an event. I think it was 3 years previously, and that was it. It was about a week after Econ Expo last year, and he dropped me an email. He's like, I've been to Econ Expo, and I spoke to a couple of agencies that had stands there, and they never got back to me. And I'm thinking, that's a good tip there, agencies. Always follow up anyone you met at an event, right?
Are you following up?
Because he was like, they didn't follow up, and I remembered you from 3 years ago, and you followed up. And would you
you weren't even at the expo that they tried to, they contacted the firm from the year before.
Honestly,
guys.
And I can't say who they are because I haven't checked whether or not we'll be able to do it. But
and they probably spent 20 grand to be in the room or whatever.
They are a well-known supercar manufacturer, and you're thinking, what? I think because it's they've got they work with that brand. It's through like an intermediary company that kind of does it on their behalf. But I think maybe sometimes when people approach you on your stand and they say they're from such and such, and because I'm a car guy, I'm like, I know exactly who these guys are. If you don't kind of join the dots and realise who they are as a business, you probably think, they're just some thing.
Yeah.
But you undo the sort of...
They represent... Oh, okay.
Yeah. And you're like, wow.
Yeah. Well, this is the thing. You never know, do you, really, speaking to a lot of these events?
No.
I have a similar story where a guy reached out to the team probably 3 years ago, and he started with us on Meta, and the guys did a great job on Meta ads, Facebook ads, as it was. And then, great. So then he took all our services, 5 or 6 retainers, and really, really good client. And then the guys booked him onto the Econ at One podcast. And he's like, he says to me, I don't know if you remember me. I was like, sorry, I don't remember you. And this is like live on a podcast like this. And he goes, well, 8 years ago, you were at the IRX. And he said, and I was just setting up in business. And he says, and you were rammed at your stand, but you took half an hour to speak to me. And he says, I just thought, that was really nice of you. You could have clearly just told me to, whatever. And he was a startup, at that time. And it's tricky at expos, isn't it? Because sometimes they're just really busy, but ultimately just give your time to everybody you can and ultimately try and do the right thing. And he said, "Oh, when I was ready, I knew I wanted to work with you, sort of thing." And now they're one of our probably top 10 clients, you know.
Nuts, isn't it?
But you just don't know, do you? These expos. But I mean, that was an 8-year sort of lead cycle, so I wouldn't, you know.
Well, I think it transcends all businesses. I remember a family friend of ours. He went into a Mercedes. This was a few years ago. Went into a Mercedes dealership, and he's absolutely minted. You know, multimillionaire, and he goes in and like looks like, you know, he's not got much money.
Yeah.
You know, scruffy, whatever it is. Walks in. The salesmen don't really ever, you know, give him time of day. And they come over just as he's kind of walking out the door going, "Oh, can you help?" He's like, "Oh, I wanted to buy like I don't know what it was at the time, like an SLR Merc or something, you know, some crazy Mercedes." But he's like, "You didn't bother to give me time of day." So he went down to the next Mercedes dealership and went in, and they were like, "Oh, hello, nice to meet you." You know, decent salesman.
Looked after him.
Yeah, because you find a lot of these people with a lot of cash do not look like it. You know, if you didn't know who someone like Jay Leno was, for example, and he just walked into a dealership, you'd be like, he's just some old guy, like, doesn't look like he's got cash. He's got one of the biggest car collections in the world.
He's one of the big. Yeah, I've watched a lot of his car videos.
I love him. And you're thinking, like, you can't judge a book by its cover. And I think that's the same when people come to your stand.
Yeah.
And you're absolutely right. You know, it might be the business they're in at that time is a bit small, or that's a failed startup. You know, you're thinking, oh, this is kind of a bit of a waste of my time. But where are they going to end up?
Yeah.
That's the thing.
I think it's like also like you got this wave of really smart young marketers coming through. You know, try and help them with, you know, where they're looking for opportunities, they're looking to be guided what to learn, how to do something. If you can help them, you know, that generation are then going to become the marketing leaders of, you know, the car brands and so forth. There's a client we've got in, you know, this is a podcast about you, but you know, just last story, and then I'll, you know, they were, you know, young lass, local lady that works for a really small marketing agency, and we invited her to an event of ours. You know, she was just starting out, and, you know, became, you know, really got to know her quite well. But then she's gone on to she runs the marketing for a 1,000-person, you know, brand that's a very good client of ours, sort of thing.
Amazing.
But obviously we didn't do it for that reason. You know, you just you know, try and help these people, whether that's client, you know. But, you know, obviously we run a lot of sort of community events. You just meet a lot of people along the way, don't you, sort of thing. Yeah. And then when it's right, if you can help them, they can help you. They might think, oh, it's that sort of law of reciprocity. I can never say the word, but it's sort of, you know, just think, put good stuff out there by helping where you can. You know, if a retailer comes up to you and wants some advice on X, Y, Z, I know you will help. Do everything you can to help them. Yeah. And when the time's right, they may well, hopefully, remember. Maybe, you know, well, you know, let's have a chat with Josh on. But yeah, so the relationships you built then 3-4 years ago have been really good for the agency now. So I think it's still, you know, I think, you know, obviously we talk a lot about the e-commerce industry, but obviously agency intensive, you know, agencies as a whole, you know, what events can you still be going to as agency owners that are sort of in your industry? You know, if you're running an agency for, we mentioned cars and car parts, cars themselves, you know, we are going to, next week, we're going to a very specific car automotive marketing event. It's not our event, but we're going to network to understand that more. You know, we've picked up a few clients this last 2 or 3 years in automotive. We want to go and meet more and more of these people. I think getting out there it's still hard to beat, isn't it? It
is, and I think relying on the connections that I've built from, you know, the last 3 years would be a silly thing to do entirely, because you're missing out on the ones that you're building for the next 3 years. So it's very much like you still need to be going. And I'm going down to London tomorrow to the Econ Colab Club event. I don't particularly always go sort of every month, and I don't go to the, like tomorrow I can't go to the actual main event, but there's a spin-off lunch event that I like to go to. And one of the guys that I met there a few years ago, we've been helping each other out on client accounts. You know, he's given us some great leads and vice versa. And I'm going down tomorrow to sit next to him at lunch to have a good chat to him, catch up. Yeah. Because, you know, we're jointly making a decent living by helping each other out. Yeah. And I think that's the thing. It's like we all just want to have a decent living, and I think the best way to do that is to kind of build those human connections of, you know, like, how can we kind of help each other. Yeah. The bit I don't like about the kind of partnership and event side is where people are a little bit too much in your face and they're like constantly ringing you, like constantly hounding you, because as much as I love all of them, you just can't. And we're not an agency that unfortunately can have a dedicated sort of partnerships person. And even then, as we well know, they get saturated as well. It's very much being mindful, I think, of that. And I think as agencies, we've got to be mindful of, I think there's been a lot historically of people referring clients into the wrong tech partners for the wrong reasons.
Yeah.
And I think we need to be all collectively quite responsible with that. And I think the good agencies always are, because they have got that foresight to know at some point that's going to come and bite me. Because if I can't, it's not right fit. And they're going to come back and be like, why did you tell me to go and work with these guys? I haven't got the capacity to work with that platform, whatever it might be.
They couldn't help. Or,
And I think that's the same with those partner managers that are, connecting. We get it all day, every day, LinkedIn, whatever it might be. People are in the office going, I want to sell you this partnership. I want a new payment provider, whatever it is.
New SaaS, whatever.
You just got to be mindful that people are really busy. And I know that you've got your job to do, but it's just being that human touch. So, rather than kind of dropping in once a week, maybe drop in once a quarter, once a month, trying to play that kind of, I'm here. And I think they need to, I think the good ones do, they see that long game.
Yeah.
But I think we kind of all got to collectively.
I think it comes back to there's got to be a genuine, can that partner really, really help?
Yeah.
I think that's what a lot of it boils down to. Or that tech, that software, those set of people, that marketing agency, those dev people that can do this very specific thing. It's not, you're not just recommending for the sake, we're not saying that, but I think ultimately there can be a lot of noise with partnerships, can't there? Hang on, actually, have we got clients that already benefit from this thing that these people do, and can they do a really, really good job?
Yeah.
And have it, but then I think you got to be careful not to also have too many.
I totally agree.
Because you can have, you can just be a very, very busy fool in partnerships 100%. Where actually, these are all really lovely people, but actually our client base, don't really need half of this stuff. Right. Well, a quick change of direction. So I'm intrigued. Obviously, when we last spoke, you had the office.
We did,
and I believe now you don't have the office.
Yeah. So we sold the office that we used to have in
the
centre of Nottingham, which is it was in West Bridgeford.
Yeah.
So post COVID, we weren't really using it.
Yeah.
And then we kind of went, let's get rid of it. The company owned it, so it's kind of an asset just sat there.
Yeah.
And I think the plans longer term for the business as well, a bit of a restructure, to take it into the kind of the next.
Or maybe
era.
Talk about that on the next time we get you on.
Yeah, potentially. So we also it's one of those crazy things. I think we were paying like $30,000 a year rates on that
just
property,
on the rates
because it was quite big.
Yeah,
is a big sort of like Victorian manor house.
Yeah.
The business bought it a long time ago, so for a lot less than what it's worth now. But it took a while to sell it, and we'd already made the decision that we were like, right, we need to just.
Were there other people in there, other businesses in sublet and stuff, or
no?
All
it
you
could
guys?
have been. It could have been. It really could. I mean, there are a lot of scenarios that were considered. Maybe like sublet into floors, co-working.
Yeah.
But you're thinking like it's just you got to weigh up kind of the return. And actually, when you look at it, you don't get a huge amount back for doing that, for the amount of time that goes into it, unless you've got a place, a massive place, purpose built kind of thing. So we rented we now rent a cow shed on an old cow farm, and it was purpose converted, basically purpose built. There's it's all open plan and ultra modern, and because of the square footage, it's under the rateable value.
Yeah.
So our rent is like half of what the old rates used to be. So you're thinking, and it's brilliant because I think it comes on to that fact of like we as an agency, and this is a kind of concern for a lot of agencies at the minute. Like, do you still need an office? Can you go into just do it occasionally remote working space? All these sort of things. And I think we as a business have always sold really well because we've got an office.
Yeah.
And we get clients in, strategy meetings.
Yeah.
We get as much of the team in as we can at least once a month, like try and get as many people in the building at the same time, because you still need that social glue. And a lot of clients will be like, yeah, we really like you, but they don't kind of know if you're outsourcing it, or they might have been burnt with the outsourcing model.
Yeah.
They're like, who are these people? Do they exist?
But then they come to your office.
Yeah, and they're like, oh, okay, yeah, it's a thing.
Yeah.
And because it's like, it's still got that wow factor. You walk in, it's like ultra modern, underfloor heating. It's got glass down all the sides.
You wearing slippers at work then?
Yeah, you could do. I mean, you could. And that's the thing. It's like we now sit in that office, and my desk overlooks a field that's either got cows in it or sheep and lamb. It's like it's still nice. And then the office next to us is a big econ business, strangely enough.
Huh?
So it's like they're a similar sort of thing in the sense of I think they've got another office somewhere else, but
Yeah.
they still need a space for everyone to convene.
Sure, a big plus for having an office, getting the team together. Yeah.
We always said that the office was like the silent salesman.
Yeah.
Because it's like you're a tangible business.
Yeah.
You're not someone. We all know there's been people that have started up their kind of agency by going, yeah, we're a big agency, all the rest of it. There's like 2 people. And they just pretend that it's got this depth and layers.
Yeah.
But I think the sort of businesses that we attract now are very seasoned and they appreciate that human connection.
Yeah.
And they like to come into the office.
Very similar to us. We have a lot more and more clients, potential clients coming to this office. Yeah. Yeah.
So I'd say to like the agencies out there that are kind of, and I know there's a lot of agencies that got rid of their offices and they just buy a bit of space or rent a bit of space and they go in occasionally and the rest of it. And you can kind of get away with that. Like my brother's got quite a big business that he runs in London that they got rid of all their offices quite a few years ago. And he's like, well, yeah, but the co-working space we've got, they don't really know that all those people that are in it aren't our employers. So it's like, actually, it can work both ways. So it's kind of finding the right place, I think.
Yeah.
And not everyone, it's not the right thing for everyone.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So Josh, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on. Maybe is there a couple of things on the absolute roadmap that you're going to be working on over the next 12 months that you want to share with our listeners that might help other agency owners, the sort of things that you're putting time into?
I think we've briefly touched on one of them, but the kind of reporting, getting a better understanding of how the business is running.
So that's from reporting for your own reporting.
Yeah.
And client reporting, or
both. Yeah. I think just more visibility.
Yeah.
And I think people are kind of, they're always open to it. So it's like, if you can make it really easy for people to digest a lot of data, they're always going to be open to it.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of the agency, like client reporting, has always been a bit like, I don't know, it's a bit flat. I don't think it's necessarily always kind of been dynamic enough to kind of leverage those things that are like the bits we might forget. So I think there's a lot to be done on that side. But definitely operational in the business. I think, working where, are there efficiencies there? Can we make a bit more profit here? Do we need a bit more capacity there?
Yeah.
I think we're doing it at the moment where we're like, I'm doing a big manual one kind of to try and set the foundations of what we want to achieve out of maybe making it automated, or at least, getting AI to do kind of a lot of the heavy crunching of the numbers.
Yeah.
And already you can kind of go, well, this department's probably a little bit lean there. That one's running a bit too hard. Yeah. This client account's probably not being pushed hard enough in the sense that we're not supporting them enough, maybe. Yeah. I think that's a really big one. I think
so. Looking at the profitability in certain areas, departments, and across the board, try and sort of get another extra, whatever it may be, 5-10% out of.
I think so. Yeah, because I think all our costs going up. Our wage inflation's going up.
Yeah,
we haven't got any juniors on our team, and they are all UK based, so they're all demanding pretty good salaries, which is fine. But you want to always try and reward them each year with a bit of an increase. Try and keep up with inflation, all the rest of it at least. But that's got to come from somewhere, right? And if you can kind of make efficiencies, that helps everyone. Because there's a bit more maneuverability there for the team. You can reward people.
Where you might have hired traditionally, you might try and build that extra work into the existing team, for example.
Yeah, but make it manageable. I think that's the thing. It's like,
of course, because of inefficiencies in the way that you do things means we can do slightly, an extra 3% in each department means an extra. Well, as a person you might have hired, now you don't need to, but then that's on the bottom line, which can be spread out on pay increase day.
I think that's
pay review day,
and getting people kind of on board with the and we're doing that at the moment, like getting people on board with the reasons why you're doing it. And it's very much like, look, we're transparent, we're telling people we're doing it, and we're doing it to make sure that everything's manageable for everyone and that we're getting the best out of it for everyone. Because if the business is doing better, everyone gets the reward of it. And if everyone's kind of not exploding because they're so busy,
it's not too much.
It's not too much. Then,
there's a fine, well, not fine line, but that is obviously you've got to be keeping an eye on both sides, haven't you? So, okay, we're under capacity here. So, these guys can do more, or this department. But however, these 3 guys are up to their neck in it. And so we can't just go, right, 5% everybody extra. So it's understanding where people are at, isn't it?
It's even the forecasting side, and that's a bit that I'm definitely going to work on over the next 12 months. Is it's really tricky to forecast, especially in the development space, because it's not like it's a retainer necessarily, because it's a project comes in, fine, and it'll be X amount of hours, and it should go through in sprints or whatever it might be. But we all know that things move around.
4 months now is 6 months.
Yeah, and then there might be a couple of accounts clash, or a client is all of a sudden not available, or whatever it might be. You can't build all those factors in. But getting a bit more visibility on that, and we always do like a monthly helicopter. We call it the helicopter meeting because it's top level, and we'll look at kind of all of the pipeline, how big those jobs are, how many hours are, like where they're potentially going to go in the schedules. But a lot of that is, we're still moving a lot of those pieces manually in the helicopter meeting.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't translate through all the rest of the systems very well. Yeah. And that's the bit where you're like, we could probably get a bit smarter at that.
There's some patterns there that could be used.
Yeah.
Well, Josh, it's been an absolute pleasure. Now, I don't know if you remember, but I like to end every episode with a book recommendation. Do you have a recent book that you've read that you'd like to share with our listeners?
So I think I did on the last one. And you know what? This time, I was thinking about this. I've not been reading as much as I like to. And I think everyone's probably guilty of that to a certain degree. And especially because I'm a person that gets distracted by whatever. So I've not been reading as much recently. But one of the things that, rather than a recommendation, is like, I really like the sort of human elements of everything you interact with in the world. And I think I see things on LinkedIn that isn't dribble occasionally from people that's kind of like honest. I watch podcasts, a bit like this. I'll listen to them, whatever. And even like I follow quite a lot of different YouTubers and things like that. Yeah. And I'm always picking the bits of like, you know what, their perception of that and how I could implement that in what I do day to day is really quite exciting.
Have you got a YouTuber then that you would recommend to our listeners?
A car guy, and he's really well known. Well, there's two really well known ones. Like the big one in the world at the moment, and he's from Leicester, is Matt Armstrong.
Yeah.
I always watch Matt. I watched him from the start, from his early COVID days when he basically got famous because of furlough. He had time to kind of start his channel, which is amazing. And I've watched a few of the spin-off ones, like Chris Slicks, etc. And one of the clients that we used to work with sells tools and stuff like that. And this was a few years back, but I was very much talking to the CEO there about like how they could leverage kind of that and implement that in their business. But the bit I take away from that is like, even though someone might already be doing something, whether it be restoring crash damaged supercars or whatever it might be. I was thinking about this the other day, actually. Probably a good one to explain. But like, you think McDonald's, they're probably the most well-known fast food chain, right?
Yeah.
You're thinking, surely someone couldn't get into that market and still do well with it. But they could, because there's always room for someone to do it better and different. And I think that's the same in our industry. Like, if everyone's kind of doing it exactly the same way, then it's not going to work. You've got to kind of come in and go, well, we're going to do that bit better. And I think that's where I've got a lot of that inspiration from watching all these people, whether it be...
they've sort of disrupted an industry.
Yeah. And I think, I watch some of the bigger ones like Stephen Butler or whatever it might be, and pick through kind of the noise, because some of those channels have got so busy and so much to watch. But very much like a lot of those, you'll kind of get those same sort of repeat sort of patterns of like business advisors or mentors or whatever going, you just need to look at your proposition and do it better than everyone else. And that's the side of it. And if I am reading some books, I'd always try and like autobiographies and stuff like that I really find interesting, because you get to understand the person, the journey, all the rest of it. So that's a long way of saying I haven't got a recommendation.
So you haven't read any books, but you watch a lot of YouTube.
Yeah, because
thank you.
My comms the channels coming in are
sounds
different.
Similar to my. I might have just recently subscribed to YouTube Premium.
Yeah, I know. First thing, you think you do the maths on it and go, I can save X amount of my life by not watching ads.
Yeah,
it's probably worth.
Well,
that.
I have genuinely. I'm obsessed with YouTube at the moment.
Me too.
We are as an agency. Yeah. It's I think it's we've got a lot of plans for the agency and this podcast for YouTube personally. Yeah. My kids have started YouTube channels and they've got more subscribers than me, and I'm thinking this is not happening.
No, it's literally the best marketing tool on the planet. In fact, one of the ones of the spin-offs, they were interviewing Matt Armstrong. on one of the podcasts going like, how have you got successful, the rest of it. And he was saying that now he's so big and he can get 5-6 million views a video. Most people can't afford to sponsor them.
Yeah.
Because 5-6 million viewers is worth a lot of money, right? So most of these big channels are then setting up their own merchandise. So he basically will plug his own merchandise because he will get more money from that than he would from underselling a sponsorship to someone. And you're thinking, it's business genius because they built their own marketing platform. Yeah, and
now they're marketing with with merch that's got their brand on.
Yeah, they're making loads of profit on. And you're thinking, it's great. And I think you wouldn't necessarily do that in our space, or if you guys get big on YouTube.
Do you think you could wear an Econ 1 or an agency intensive cap to work?
Oh, I absolutely would. I'm an Econ 1 fan. But I think that's the thing. It's like just thinking outside the box a bit. Yeah.
So Josh, it's been a pleasure having you on. For those that want to find out more about what you do, more about Absolute, what's the best way to do that?
Best way is probably to go to my LinkedIn.
Yep.
So you find me, Joshua Grant, on LinkedIn, or our website, which is a really long domain name, and we should really change it. But absolute-design.co.uk. We've been around 30 years. Started off as a brand and design agency. We're not going anywhere anytime soon. But anything really development related, econ related, we're the go-to. We're based in Nottingham. So yeah.
Brilliant. Well, thanks for coming on the show. If you enjoyed this episode, hit the subscribe or follow button wherever you are listening to this podcast. So you're always the first to know when a new episode is released. Have a fantastic day, and I'll see you on the next one.